Is this Magnus's room?
Interested?
Not really. I'm just making sure you're not trying to invite your army of demonic tentacle monsters over for a party or something.
I'm trying to make me go to hide.
Dang.
Can we please have a little bit of trust at this point? I mean, of all the
Really
places in this
Australian.
expansive galaxy, this isn't the most comfortable location for me to be in. Besides, I'm not Fulgrim.
So you're telling me that succulent food, a luxurious atmosphere, and an actual bed are less comfortable than the realm that is literally a collective seizure?
If you had more mental capacity than a box of Grox manure, maybe you too would appreciate its own unique majesty.
This assumes that I'm insane enough to want to.
Right?
Nevertheless, you just being here is a sign of trust in my lord, is it not?
Perhaps.
Yeah.
Damn skilled.
Also, what is that instrument?
Why are you still here?
Is that an actual instrument?
Okay, tell me, what are you actually doing? Don't mistake my question for curiosity, I'm mostly just concerned.
Research, observation, experimentation, calming my nerves, listening to the whispers of the warp, passing the time of day, and so on. Albeit it's pretty damn hard to get a good focus in this place, with Father around. Finding any warp traffic to spy on, which isn't tinted gold and full of pent-up frustration, is like trying to remove
Makes
a demonic
sense.
incursion from your rectum.
No, I left my heresy detector in my chambers, but I can hear it going on from here.
Ow! Ow! Stop that!
Stop what?
Stop dazzling me with your ignorance! Your shiny, half-baked head is burning through my retina like an acid made of stupid— Ah! Seriously, though, have you still not got that this heresy expression you speak of is just your Imperium's excuse to put a giant bolt into the head of anyone who goes against you?
I mean, he's not wrong. Like, every single thing, you immediately throw heresy at it, and then just shoot it with full of bullets, and everybody kind of hopes that that solves the issue, rather than actually addressing it. But granted, more times than not, it's better to shoot a bullet at it than it is to attempt to reason with it, because then you would probably get corrupted. But, you know, there's certainly those cases where it's not warranted.
The Imperium is like a child in a "my dad is better than your dad" argument that received the right to kill anyone that attempts to argue back, you witless dildodes.
Well, if you didn't make everything so, I don't know, diabolical, creepy, and straight up evil, maybe you wouldn't be such easy targets for both propaganda and a bolt shell to the forehead.
Bruh. This is what I talk about sometimes when it comes to villains who actually have like a reason behind it, you know? Well, not in this case, but in other games and other series. But, you know, all of their PR is like, oh, yes, we must have a creepy and evil-looking castle. We must dress in dark and foreboding clothing. And we must speak in cryptic messages. But, you know, we're actually the good people. Like, I don't know. Well, there's probably that fundamental misunderstanding of how each other's cultures work, or like how they communicate between them. But, you know, maybe do a little more research.
You're not doing yourselves any favors by wearing the skin of your enemies, for example.
For your
Yeah.
information, I have never worn the skin of my enemies. Do I look like a Necron Flayer to you?
To be fair, the Necrons and your
Oh,
Thousand
man.
Sons do have pretty similar motives nowadays.
Yes, we've already sent the cease and desist order. They're just being ferocious plasteel dicks about it.
I remember the Necron Flayers from back when we were streaming Mechanicus. They were interesting. And it is kind of tragic, but also, you know, they're damn dirty Xenos that must be purged from our galaxy, so... Gaze upon this. Are you guys okay?
Regardless, you still look like you woke up on the wrong side of the Eye of Terror.
I do see where you're coming from. All the decapitated heads and giant spikes do make it look like we're compensating for one thing or another. Like
yeah.
parents. But to be fair, given your Imperium's alarming obsession with skulls, I'd say you have some issues of your own.
That is also
Nevertheless,
true.
did you only come here to watch over my shoulder, or did you have some other reason?
Well, I actually wanted to ask you something.
Well, go ahead. Might break the monotony.
I've been wondering. I've served my Emperor for somewhere around 11,000 years or so. I don't really keep track anymore. And even though he's my our father. I don't actually know all that much about him besides
I need to
what I've
clarify
seen with my own
that.
eyes.
Isn't that enough?
Of course it is. After fighting this side and hearing his dreams for humanity, no sane man could not appreciate his majesty, wisdom, and might.
Indirectly calling me insane now.
Truly, he is the one and only worthy leader of mankind. But where did he come from? Did he have parents, or did he just, I don't know,
Appear.
fall out of a gold deposit? No,
Yeah.
that's a bad thing, of course. I'm sure it was the most glorious deposit in the world, man.
Oh, hungering for some crisp, luscious knowledge, are we? How fascinating.
Oh my. I wonder where this is going to lead Kitten. Because, like, the seeking knowledge in the Warhammer 40k universe is kind of, I don't know, dangerous. There are certain heretical thoughts that could emerge from such a venture, which was something that we were actually exploring when we did play Mechanicus, and in the story, you can choose to follow, like, certain advice from, well, I mean, your advisors, and there is one that's more, like, religious, and another one who's seeking more knowledge, and in doing so, you kind of go on the edge of being, committing heresy. Like, actual heresy, which could, benefit the Imperium of Man as a whole, because you're able to access and utilize Xenos technology, understand it better, and come up with ways to combat that. But in doing so, you put yourself at risk. So yeah, I'm interested to see where this goes.
I thought you companions were specially trained to act as completely uninteresting impersonal automatons.
Well, truth be told, I think as time has gone by, most of us have either gone a bit into the cuckoo's nest or have managed to retain some
JoJo poses.
rationality. Actually, under one exception, everyone has completely lost their mind.
Hey, Kitten! Want to go take a swim in the Promethean pools with us?
No.
Hey, be that way!
As I was saying, I'd still follow the Emperor right into the Eye of Terror if he commanded it. I live for him, I follow his every word, and I never defy him. And I would happily give my life for him. But, well, there's the thing. I'd happily give my life for him.
Implying that you can actually be happy. Which also implies the fact that you have thoughts and feelings of your own, which subsequently implies you aren't an incredibly stale person whose personal interest can be summed in the words, standing around.
I guess that's part of the reason why I was elected to the position of Captain General. After millennia of isolation and your occasional murdering of demons trying to creep in, I'm the one and only companion who's not batshit insane.
And I suppose that's also part of the reason why you're still wearing your armor after all this time.
Yeah!
Oh, thank goodness.
Well, not all this time.
Oh?
Oh?
I went through a phase.
He had a
Can't say I'm particularly
face!
proud of it.
Oh
Just like very
my.
much of the imagination, you know. Way they rude. I swear.
Okay, this actually kind of explains what was going on in the last episode as well, and why it was kind of triggering for him, but also he seemed to enjoy it.
Taste the flos.
Anyway, as you were asking...
Ah, yes.
Yeah, too much
About
details.
Okay, I know he's been around pretty much as long as humanity has, and that he has gracefully guided us through all of that, but did he make humanity in his image, or is he simply the guardian of our species? And if he made us, what made him? And if he didn't make us, what made us?
Ah, the oldest question in human history. What are our origins? Sadly, I'm of little help to you in that field. Been too busy comprehending the Immaterium and superhero comics.
Really? Didn't he ever tell you
Oh.
himself?
I wonder which superheroes Magnus would be a fan of.
And if he didn't, don't you have some old arcade book about it or something?
Actually, he never told me much about his own past or humanity's origins. Perhaps he didn't want us to know, since he's...
Humanity's origins, I don't remember exactly if that was ever touched upon. I know that there are the races that were created by the old ones, and maybe humanity is also one of those. But I also feel like humanity wasn't really there for the war in heaven, were they? Did we just kind of develop on our own? That's a good question. Because I'm pretty sure Big E came from like a bunch of psychers, like way in the past, well, in terms of Earth's history, who sacrificed themselves in order to create him. And hence on, he's kind of been just guiding humanity from then on. But he wasn't there at the dawn of creation of mankind, right? I don't know.
He's always been so exasperatingly introvert about things like teaching. That, or it's because I never really asked. May have been the latter, all things considered. And no, I don't have an old book lying about that specifically tells us where we all came from. Only my neurotic brother Lorgar would have the talent to write a fictive suicide of that caliber. Besides, even if I had a book like that, all the exciting demon tomes with screaming faces and beware signs lying about would probably just make it look severely unappealing in comparison.
Gah, I suspected as much. And I've looked through all the tomes and slates in the palace's libraries, all the data stored in archives, ancient texts and journals. I've even looked through albums of travel photos of Terra's sake.
Travel
but I didn't find
photos.
anything about the time before the Emperor conquered Terra during the Age of Strife.
If you are that curious, why not just ask Father himself?
Yeah, I don't know. Multiple reasons. His mind is so splintered that remembering such ancient knowledge might make him fling his skull across the room like a bowling.
Is that his Centurion?
That, and I'm much unsure if he'd actually want to tell me. I mean, if he never told you, why would he tell me?
Well, he does seem to like you, despite him being grumpiness incarnate. He relies on you to listen to his boundless complaints and to inform him about, to quote, stupid shit. I'd even say he trusts you. He certainly trusts you more than he trusts me or any of his other sons for that matter. Actually, are you sure you're not his wife or something?
No, of course not, but... Wait. Really? You think so?
Indeed, stepmother.
Oh
First of
my
all,
god.
quiet you. Second of all, I think you might be right.
He's
I'm
very
really
happy
wrong.
about
So I
this.
might just go and
Oh
ask him then.
You do that.
no. Oh jeez.
Actually, don't you want to come too?
Nah, I'm gonna practice for that talent show that I heard is coming up next Thursday.
Talent show?
You
What do
say
you...
they're batshit insane, but your fellow companions do seem to know how to have a good time.
I mean, that is true. At the very
Unless
least.
you want soggy hair and stay down for a week, I would highly recommend you drop
Oh.
Why should I... Oh.
Ellipsis.
Magnus immediately joins him. Well, we all know what would happen. So, yeah, let's move on.
Maybe this wasn't such a good idea after all.
So
Probably
let me
not.
get this straight. You mean to say that you really have no records of human history before the Age of Strife accessible within the Imperial Palace?
No, not
It's all
really.
gone,
Most of it's
pretty
so
much,
heavily
yeah.
censored by the Ecclesiarchy and the Inquisition that more closely resembles a barcode than it does anything else.
So
Dude, that reminds me of, like, really old SCP documents. Like... SCP has developed so much over the years. Some of the newer ones are very brilliantly written, especially the thousands. However, the older ones, they were very leave it up to your own interpretation, but it was kind of a miss because there was just so much information that wasn't there. You couldn't even get a good picture of what was actually going on.
you have no recollection of the tales of the old ones, my own conception, the rebellion of the Men of Iron, or any other tidbits of humanity actually kicking ass?
No. Is that a servitor?
Incredible. I honestly thought I'd hit the greasy fucking bottom of this shithole when you told me of the Inquisition's activities, but I'm just now realizing that I'm only scratching the surface of this frozen ocean of
dude, you have no
ineptitude.
idea.
It's almost as if nobody wants to hear about how our people weren't the be-all and all of civilization in this cesspit of a galaxy.
Yeah.
Yeah, funny that, isn't it?
Right, this is something that I shall now unfuck post-haste. Magnus, fetch some parchment and do what you do best.
Oh, here
Take
we go.
notes.
Do not worry,
History
I
lesson.
always have paper with me.
What a fucking
Awesome.
nerd you are. Anyway, I want you to write down everything I am about to tell you, and when I'm done, rewrite the whole damn thing as a grand historical document. Then I want you to start covering it in holy seals and shit, and then throw it into a pile of dirt for a while, so it gets that shitty old paper look. That'll make stupid
Yeah, make it authentic, you know. It's gotta have that old dirt smell.
people think it's inherently trustworthy. Oh, and shiny bridges.
Yes, my lord?
When Magnus finishes his chicken scratchings, I then want you to take this document to the scribes, have it proofed to make sure he doesn't sneak in any mimetic chaos bullshit, then have it mass-produced and distributed all across the galaxy to all people of authority. I don't care if you literally need to
You know, this is actually really big brain. Because, like, well, our initial message to get rid of the Inquisition didn't really work out as we had hoped, and that kind of caused even further confusion. So maybe this time around it'll seem authentic and actually do something, change something, inform people of a time long past.
ram it down their fucking throats. Just make sure they read that shit and understand it. No spam box filter shall stop my glorious wisdom this time.
Yes, my lord.
Now, gather round, children, for it is grand story time. Cue visuals.
Cue visuals.
In the beginning, There was nothing.
Oh, we're starting from there?
Nothing that has ever not existed. The nothing just kinda sat about and unexisted, not bothered by any such thing as existence or reality.
Are we gonna have like a quick recap of something like the history of the entire world, I guess, that video? But this time it's Warhammer 40k version.
There may have been some bits of heat energy floating about, but that shit doesn't count. Eventually, however, this frigid, lonely expanse of plot hole level nothing got sick of being nothing and decided to get a job. So all the energy bits sucked themselves into a ball smaller than the level of progress made since I was put on this over-glorified Porto Potty lighthouse. Then, the energy exploded with the force of something that you'd compare giant fucking explosions to. There has never been, and never will be, an explosion as big as this one. It was so big that it's literally still happening right now.
Wait,
Yeah.
what caused the heat to compress and explode like that?
I don't fucking know. Dark matter, plane walkers, precursors,
Plane
a bunch
walkers.
of geeks with nothing better to do making a badass fictional universe for the purpose of inevitably selling inordinately expensive plastic miniatures.
You're getting a little too real there, man.
So after the mega explosion, atoms started to take form from the massive amounts of energy
look at
that
those
floated
lovely
around,
atoms.
and these atoms started recombining, collapsing, and forming themselves into elements, molecules, and compounds. These substances, unlike energy, had mass and decided to get closer to each other because now this new thing called gravity applied to them because that's just what fucking happened. Fuck this boring chemic shit, let's get to the good stuff.
Yeah.
As matter formed into big lumps, these lumps became celestial formations. Stars, planets, nebulas, asteroids, comets. Eventually, due to conservation of energy and some weird chemical reactions, life eventually formed on these lumps of space crap. Supposedly, the first life that came about was a race of beings that became known as the Old Ones. The reason for this nickname
the
is that
Old
they were the
Ones.
ultimate rulers of reality and evolution, and they were really fucking old, go figure. These beings
Only
are the
watches
shitty,
TV all
neglectful
day.
grandparents of all that is life. They evolved so damn hard that they eventually became spiritual entities, discovering the so-called realm of souls. As a side note, as you can see, they looked something like big, fat amphibians before they evolved into beings of pure power. So that's a lot of progress for a bunch of giant hyper-intelligent toadmen.
Hey, don't shit talk the lizardmen. Although the lizardmen were kind of created in the image of the old ones, and 40k just kind of borrowed the image of the old ones from that. I think that's how it went.
Come to think of it, that sounds a lot like the administratum.
Incomprehensibly powerful for almost no reason.
Toadman, you rose to the
Toadman,
typewriter
yeah.
with a fucking mouth. Anyway, they then decided to create other species for shits and giggles. Some said
Shits
that
and
they
giggles.
created all life after themselves, but I'm not so sure on that one. Perhaps they helped push the boat out, but they certainly didn't fucking build it.
So these old ones didn't create humanity.
That's what I just said, you hollow-headed ninny.
Yeah.
Most life
Okay.
evolved in one way or another, and
Well, the old ones were all about biodiversity, right? So maybe, I guess indirectly, they allowed the creation of humanity or set about the motion that would inevitably create humanity. But then there were the races that they directly had a hand in making, like the orcs as well as the Eldar, which were specifically created for the purpose of war.
and anyone who doesn't accept that is probably really drunk.
Lorgar's going to have fun with this.
Continuing on. Next to arrive were a bunch of floozy fucking milksops that you would recognize as the Eldar. Due to the fact that, early in their evolution, they reproduced like space rabbits, they actually ended up becoming the dominant race in the galaxy. The Oldons were more like spread-out singularities of imbalanced min-max hanging around here and there. But neither
Min-max.
race really cared for each other, so they coexisted peacefully, one spreading like a pointy-eared plague, while the other pooped out orangutans, more frogmen, and races with unpronounceable names. But then came the Necrontyr.
Wait. That sounds
The
familiar.
Strap
Necrons,
yourselves
yeah.
to something, because here comes the most obvious plot twist of the fucking century. The Necrontyr were salty assholes because they had evolved on a shitty, radiation-blasted planet. They
Can
built
you blame
underground
them?
cities that seriously looked like depressing tombs because their life sucked so much that they would rather wait out their own death than do much else. After years of being subservient to their animosity, like an entire race of entitled middle-aged people, they became envious of both the Old One's incredible powers and the Eldar's massive galaxy-spanning girth. Of course, they were little more than an irritating bunch of self-pitying tearjerkers to such powerful races. Eventually, however, the spite of the Necrontyr became so mighty that they started hating all life in the galaxy. Even
I just realized it's represented as them having their emo phase. I see. I gotcha.
themselves, and decided to start murdering literally everything. However,
Yeah.
they soon realized
Yeah.
that manually making sure every single grass straw on a planet was dead was really fucking tedious, so they started snooping around for something to make into a super weapon. That led to them finding a weird bunch of gas orbiting the super radioactive star that had turned their planet into the empire of atomic bombia. They
Atomic
suddenly noticed that
bombia.
the gas was feeding on the very energy of the star.
Is that a
It turned out
Catan?
that the gas was alive, but not in the same sense as other life forms. It had evolved in a whole different way, and was technically even older than the old ones. Of course, all it actually did was eat radiation and, be what is basically celestial fart gas. But of course, these assy Necrondards just had to fuck with this peaceful, sun-eating anomaly. They proceeded to collect as many of these weird sentient gas clouds as they could find and forge bodies of living metal for them, because what isn't that the first idea that comes to your mind as well? They
Exactly.
used the gas's own radiation-eating abilities to lure the dormant consciousnesses of them into the bodies they had made via the use of a bridge of starlight, or some pretentious shit like that. So after eons of peacefully orbiting stars and eating radiation, these beings, which knew no other need than to drift around and consume, were suddenly given incredibly powerful physical forms and hypercomputerized synthetic brains to give them all the
Oh.
knowledge the Necrotry hearts had collectively acquired. As you can guess, this went swimmingly for everyone involved.
Right?
Wait. I think I can guess who these guys are now.
Congratulations.
These gas entities. They became the Catan, and the Necrontyr became the Necrons?
Give this man a PhD because that's some
Hey,
serious prank.
I guessed it before kidding. What do I get? But I do want to say that while this is also quite memey in nature, it is still quite accurate to what I know, at the very least, of the creation of the races and the entire setup for the lore for Warhammer 40k. Although maybe the Necron lore has kind of evolved over the years and there were some changes here and there. If there are any, I'm sure you guys will let me know, but so far it kind of aligns with what I know. Just the general idea of it.
Brain power for a giant armored potato chip. But yes, these beings, in their fancy noob bodies, with their big noob brains, were named the Catan by the Necrontyr, and were worshipped as gods. The Catan weren't nice though. They absorbed all the living metal the Necrontyr had amassed, and used it to transform this massive species of psychopaths into a race of living, murderous machines who mindlessly served them. They also ate most of the Necrontyr's souls while they were at it, because they were ungrateful assholes like that.
That's how they
That's
be.
also when these mounds of fluid dickery discovered that souls were far more appealing than space radiation. I guess souls have more nutrition or something. So the Catan started looking back through the extensive memories of the
Wonder why.
Necrontyr, now renamed Necrons for some reason, and saw that the old ones had the biggest, tastiest souls of them all, and decided that it would be a good idea to eat them. When the Catan came gnawing at the old one's front door, the old ones of course decided to punch the shit out of them with their minds, like all grandparents do.
What, your grandparents don't do that? Okay, now this is maybe a little bit different from my understanding. I thought that the Catan were always kind of like a threat to the old ones, and they had known of each other, and there was always this ongoing war between the two. But the Catan could never win until obviously they got hold of the Necrons and created an army out of them, which kind of provoked that response from the old ones. But just judging from the comments that I make here and what you guys have been telling me, there seems to be a lot of lore that I have misunderstood simply because, well, there is a lot of misinformation. Well, I don't know if it's necessarily misinformation, but just ideas and concepts of particular things within the universe that have been memed on and have, because of that, kind of been decided to be actual lore when in reality that's not the case. So yeah, I'm all these things that I'm mentioning, it's just what I know, but I know well enough that there's definitely a few things here that I'm not quite correct on.
But that's when they noticed that their psychic powers were useless against both them and the Necrons because they had no souls of their own. This started a massive galaxy-wide massacre of the Old Ones that went so far that they nearly became extinct. I guess you could say that the Old Ones got their life towed away from them.
Seriously though, that's awful.
Well, I guess the Necrons here got what they wanted in the end.
Not quite. See, some of the Old Ones survived, and they decided that the only way to stop this imminent galactic doom is to fuck up in an equally as awful manner as the Necrontyr. Thus, they created a new race, one which could fight the soulless Necrons for them. A race with strange reality-bending powers fueled by crowd mentality instead of souls. A race that knew and desired only war and destruction. A race that could weaponize anything and was almost impossible to kill.
The Krorks.
A race that became known then as the Krorks, or as we know them today, the Orcs, because shortening names is a thing.
What?
Greenskins?
There's a plot twist you didn't see coming. The Orcs were actually important all along. So yeah, while the Krorks were fighting the Necrons, the Eldar were shitting their collective frilly panties because they knew that they were
I see that Joseph Joestar, oh no, sneak in.
next on the menu. So they decided to salvage as much of the Old Ones' tech as they could and fuse it with their own. Believe it or not, the Webway was actually a creation of the Old Ones, but the Eldar nicked off with the designs, like the thieving bastards they are. That said, by combining Webway technology and the power of the Realm of Souls, they created a new type of material to combat the living metal of the Necrons called Wraithbone. The Wraith constructs were sent into battle alongside the Krorks to fight back the Necron.
That I didn't know about. I suppose that's specific, like, Eldar technology.
Turns out that while the Cat-10 were immune to psychic powers, it seemed as they couldn't handle being Wraithboned.
Dang.
From the moment I heard the name come up, I knew you'd say that.
Why aren't you the smartest kid on the fucking block?
Of course I am.
No wonder you were bullied by your brothers.
No, that's just uncalled for.
Anyway, just when things started to go down the drain for the Cat-10, things got even worse for them, as one particular asshole among them known as the Deceived, good friends with the Eldar Laughing God, brought together the most edgy Cat-10 he could possibly find, creatures with names that only the most lonely of people could come up with, such as the Nightbringer, the Void Dragon, and the Outsider.
Oh, the Void Dragon!
Then said to his fellow celestial gas canisters,
all the other Cat-10 are weak and being killed off. We should eat them before they die so their powers won't be wasted.
Thus, the Cat-10 started infighting, and began to eat each other, while also being destroyed by the Krorks and the Eldar, because that is clearly what an intelligent life form would do.
Right?
So much destruction was caused in this, the First Great War, that the Cat-10 suddenly realized they were expending more energy than they were absorbing, and would run out of power if they kept this up. All according to plan, Shagorath said as he laughed away the night with the death lever.
Killing all of your allies in the middle of a giant war was apparently a bad idea. Who would have fucking thought?
Plus, they simply decided to retreat.
That's interesting. I didn't know Shagorath, I think that's how you pronounce his name, was kind of a part of all of this. Like, ever since way back when. That being said, though, it's not like I knew too much about him and his lore and his involvement with the universe. I didn't really have a basis of knowledge to go off of because he's not in fantasy, unlike some of the other gods who kind of have their direct comparison to their fantasy counterpart.
Back to the Tomb Worlds with their Necron armies to wait for the universe to become plump, juicy, and unprepared again.
It would seem that at some point during that time, the Necrons must have regained some consciousness and taken revenge against the Catan for screwing them over.
So I have been led to believe.
Although to be honest, it kind of sounds like they deserved what happened to them. That's what you get for being a filthy Xeno, after all.
So with that giant clusterfuck out of the way, you'd think things would get better. But no. This giant war had left the universe a complete fucking mess. The old ones were near extinct. The Eldar were still scared shitless, and worst of all, the Krorks, with no Necrons left to fight, turned on their creators since the old ones had forgotten to install a fucking off switch. Fortunately, they could be held at bay due to having no technology of their own. That said, something worse than Necrons was on the
Okay, so my understanding is that they did have an off switch, but the old ones had to flee from the galaxy, and they weren't there to turn them off, essentially. So all they could do was just continue to go along with what their genetic coding had provided them and make the most out of it.
The horizon. You see, all the souls who were eaten, and all those who died in the battles created a major imbalance in the realm of souls. This imbalance within the outer realm corrupted and twisted it with all the ill will, fears, and general lack of common fucking decency that life now collectively experienced. Nightmarish spiritual entities started to emerge from the darkness of the realm, like a giant galactic panic
demons,
attack.
yeah,
It was at this point
chaos
that the first
gods.
demons emerged, and the realm of souls was given a new name.
The warp! That all makes sense.
Yup. Not only did that war fuck up the universe, but it fucked up the outer realms of the universe too. Compared to that war, this 10,000-year-old conflict that started when fucking Horos decided to be a bad boy is barely a blip on the radar. Puts things into context, doesn't it?
I suddenly feel small, and I don't know how to feel about that.
You'll
You
get
always
used to
have
it.
been.
Besides, you're shorter than most of your brothers anyhow.
That's entirely my choice, and you know it.
But where were we, humanity, during all of this?
We were all
Right?
busy evolving from primates into tribal cavemen, picking our
Okay.
noses, and fornicating in the ways that primitive beings do.
So then there wasn't anything before that, or no actual, like, direct tie-in with all of that. The history of humanity would likely just follow what our actual history is, but with the Emperor kind of being there as like a replacement for certain important figures. I remember you guys commenting about like which particular famous figures in history were actually the Emperor or reported to be the Emperor. So that's what I'm going to assume, but obviously at some point we kind of just go far into the future, we go into space, we develop all this crazy technology, and that's kind of where it diverges.
But not for long. You see, warp storms caused by this huge war fucked the galaxy over. And additionally, demonic predators of the warp finished off most, if not all, of the remaining old ones. It's like some complete-ass wipe suddenly invaded an old folks' home, demolished all their belongings, and subjected all old people to summary executions. And then another completely unrelated group came along and did the exact same thing all over again. The Eldar, realizing their own incredible fragility, decided fuck it. Literally. And
Yeah,
so they did.
literally.
Constantly. So much so that they repopulated the galaxy again, became the dominant species once more, and ruined their own reproductive cycle to the point of near non-functionality. I mean, I know you'll lose it if you don't use it, but if you use it fucking
You'll
constantly,
lose it if you
it's
don't
gonna
use
get
it.
worn out and shrivel up. It's at this point that the idiot says what species emerged.
The what?
I am absolutely hilarious, even after all these millennia.
Oh,
I still don't get it.
So, actual humans finally started coming forth out of the evolutionary fuckfest at this point, and a handful of them gained psychic powers similar to that of other species.
Okay,
carrying
these are the
souls around.
shamans that made the Emperor,
These
right?
early day psychers called themselves shamans, and they were totally super badass, guiding humanity by learning about the ways of nature and the universe's history, through the power of the realm of souls and probably some shrooms. However, when the doddering demon
Lots of
wishes accompanied
shrooms.
with an entire gang of horribly unnecessary creatures like enslavers and psychnoia started to show up, the shamans started to be horribly killed off in spasmtastic manners. So of course, the shamans decided they needed to put their heads together to solve the problem. So they did. Again, literally. By combining their very souls, psychic powers, knowledge, and strength, through ritualistic mass suicide. They achieved in the blink of an eye something that had taken the old ones an entire species worth of evolution to do.
The
They all
creation of the
became a single
perfect
living being
being.
of spiritual energy and power. In short, they created me.
Oh. Whoa! What was that? Kidden, are you okay? What the heck? No wonder why this is the most replayed part of the video. But that honestly was awesome. That was such a good summary, and it was so easy to understand.